The Matrix. It's hard to believe that this movie is already 20 years old, over 20 years old actually. With the fourth installment, Resurrections, coming out in just a few weeks, I decided to go for a rewatch of the original trilogy and immediately found it surprising how well the first one has aged. I mean, having not seen it for a couple of years now, I thought that, I would have expected that my memory of it was kind of looking through pink glasses, but it's actually as amazing as the day it was released, from the story and the cast to the action sequences and special effects. Instead of explaining the plot as I usually do, and I think it's not necessary in this case, I want to start with some of the wild stories from the movie's production. So the Wachowskis have been working on the script for years before making the movie, and initially, whenever shown to any producers, the reaction was always the same. It's a very good script and it has intelligent ideas in it, but we think they're too intelligent and there's no way to put it on screen in a comprehensible manner. Eventually, the Wachowskis hired an artist that storyboarded the script and the with a set of images to show how the movie would look like, to explain it in a visual way. The reception was suddenly completely different. The film was greenlit, although the script was changed somewhat to include more exposition explaining the Matrix, and also making one change which sticks out as a bit nonsensical: the reason why machines keep humans alive. Originally, it was for processing power of our brains, but that was changed to something more, let's say, understandable for the general audience at the time, to generating just power, electrical power, serving as batteries, our whole bodies. It makes no sense, but hey, when you have that piece of information, that meta piece of information about what it was supposed to be, I think the plotting is nearly perfect. Interestingly, there have been many different people considered for the lead roles, including the role of Neo. Will Smith was one of those people. He ended up passing on the project to do Wild Wild West instead. What a decision that was. Eventually, Keanu Reeves was selected, and listen, you can make an argument. I know I have made it myself, and I stand by it, that Keanu is not an especially talented actor. He is somewhat wooden, and he is stiff in his delivery, but there are certain specific roles where that can work, and Neo is one of them. Not only that, this role required extensive physical training and preparation in martial arts and stunt work, which makes Keanu actually one of the very few viable candidates among the top actors in Hollywood. Not a lot of them can commit to a role physically to this extent and come off very convincingly. He can, and he did. And I still remember when the movie was first coming out. I was 7 years old at the time, and yet the film was the talk among my friend group and many other friend groups. Some of us have seen the trailer in a movie theater with our parents. Others, with access to internet, have heard about it online. Whatever it was, the promotional material was very mysterious. What is the Matrix? Was the central question. And it worked. Everybody was curious. And eventually we got to see the film through an institution known as the older brother of one of the guys who illegally downloaded the movie off the internet. And holy shit, were our minds blown. I'm convinced now that at the time we didn't fully grasp the intricacies of the plot and the implications of it, but just the idea of living in a simulation, being inside of a computer, machines at war with humans, superpowers with dodging bullets and kung fu, our little minds were blown, and to an extent they are blown to this day. And I think the key part of Matrix's success was that it so perfectly captured the zeitgeist. I think if it had come out 5 years earlier or 5 years later, it just wouldn't be the same. But 1999, with the fears and anxieties of the coming 21st century and the year 2000, the early internet, which none of us yet understood, hacking, simulations, long trench coats and dark sunglasses, which were the epitome of cool in the 90s. And of course the whole philosophy of the Matrix, the ideas of control and freedom, of letting machines dictate our life, terrifyingly prophetic when you think of where the internet ended up going. Messianism, fate, choice, it was all there. And as much as the film took inspiration from many things before, Neuromancer, Philip K. Dick's writing, Terminator, even Alice in Wonderland, it itself ended up being so unique and so extremely important and influential on cinema going forward. I mean, so many other movies copied the slow-mo, bullet time, just to name one thing. So many quotes and terms entered the common dictionary: glitch in the matrix, the red pill. And the red pill may just be the most interesting one for me, because it spawned this community of men trying to sort of fight for their rights and talk about their issues and try to work through them and resolve them in a healthy way, which sounds very noble and is, but often parts of that community have been twisted by some of its members into a very toxic and misogynist environment, which makes it quite ironic when you think of how the Matrix is more of a metaphor for transgenderism than masculinity waking itself up. I mean, both Wachowskis have transitioned since the movies came out, and with that knowledge, and if you've read interviews with them that confirm their original ideas for the film, you just begin to see the movie in a completely different light. The lines about being trapped in a cage for the mind, the idea of waking up in your real body after years of feeling that something isn't quite right with the world. Hell, the character Switch was initially meant to be played by a man outside of the Matrix and a woman inside, or the other way around, I can't remember. Hence the name Switch. But the studio, of course, thought that was too much, and eventually Switch was turned into just a woman, albeit very, very androgynous in terms of the looks. I mean, that alone, in terms of the legacy of the film, the fact that it's one of its main messages is read so completely differently by such different group of people, suggests that it really is quite dense and unobvious and lends itself to unpacking in so many different ways. And it is, but crucially, it also never forgets it's also an action film and never sacrifices action for its philosophy. I mean, the stunt work, the martial arts and special effects look fantastic to this day, and the whole final half hour or so, from the moment Neo and Trinity walk into that hotel lobby right up until the end, it's just straight fire. All these things put The Matrix in the pantheon of the classic movies, the ones that everybody knows, the ones that everybody has seen and remembers, the ones that everybody considers fantastic. Deservedly so. 20 years on, the film still kicks ass in its every aspect.